This is 17th and International of East Oakland. And these blocks are known as the track due to its high volume of prostitution.
Whenever I walk down the International Boulevard, people used to stare and sometimes whistle at me. Do they think I'm one of those girls?
Look at her in the corner, crying, curled up under the table, trying to hide from the world. She seduced you? You told her 5-year-olds can be so seductive.
Nationally, the average age of entry into prostitution is 12. Internationally, it's younger than 12. So women don't prostitute, but little girls get sexually abused and exploited, and then they grow up.
You know, growing up here on the streets of Oakland, you know, when I hear about girls getting snatched up at the ages of 12 and then they're forced to go into the prostituting business by these pimps, you know, that doesn't fly with me. That's not cool with me because I've got a little sister who's right around that age where these girls are getting snatched up and then, you know, kidnapped and beaten into submission. You know, what's going on there? What can we do about this?
There's really all types of girls out there being solicited because there's a demand for all types of girls. But in Oakland, I would say the majority of the girls are African American females. These girls are coming from broken homes where, you know, maybe the father is in and out of the prison system, the mother may have a drug problem, the child may be tossed around into foster care with different family members. So they're coming from a very dysfunctional and not stable background to begin with, and the pimps know that, and that's why they are such easy prey in the minds of the pimps. Okay, so this is the Special Victims Unit Wall of Shame. And these guys have all been sentenced. The majority of them for pimping cases, but also we have some on this wall for just different types of child exploitation. An example right here, he got 458 years to life in state prison, all for crimes against children. In Oakland, we pretty much have two specific types of pimps. Romeo pimps are the pimps who normally lure girls by pretending to be friends or boyfriends. They're master manipulators. They're very good with their mouthpiece.
Is this for real? Is life really this fabricated? How do people buy into this? Don't they know that these young women in these videos are being abused?
The gorilla pimps are the ones who just immediately start off very violently. They kidnap girls off of the street, whether the girls are walking home from school or waiting at the bus stop or at the taco truck. Those gorilla pimps will just snatch a girl and immediately begin using physical violence and fear to coerce her to sell her body.
Her body is broken, emaciated, infected sores cover her skin. She hasn't eaten or slept in at least a week. Can't remember what it was like to have an actual meal.
The communities that have the high areas of prostitution, what they call on the street the tracks, are always poor areas. And so poor people then are more likely to become exploited because the areas that are allowed to exist all around our nation where prostitution occurs are always in poor communities.
I live in this neighborhood. Every day I have to take bus from International Boulevard to go to my school. And early in the morning I used to see these girls with short clothes and freezing cold. And I always wonder who were these girls because they never got into the bus.
Oakland has been identified as a hub for child exploitation by the FBI. And the reason I think that is a couple of things. First of all, Oakland has been highly glorified in circles of pimps, and including pimp movies and movies about pimping since the 60s and 70s. Oakland has a very high population of at-risk girls. So pimps don't have to go far to solicit victims. We have lots of foster children. We have lots of children coming from very difficult backgrounds. So I think those two factors right there are the reason that Oakland attracts so much child exploitation.
Inmate number blah, blah, blah. Arrested again. She knows the drill. Handcuffed, strip searched, thrown into a cold-ass cell.
And they're all such heartbreaking stories, but I think that the most difficult ones are the ones that you put so much effort into rescuing, you put them in contact with the advocates, they're doing well, and then all of a sudden something happens and they're back in the game and you see them back out on the track again a couple of months later. Pimps have what we call a circuit, and the circuit starts in whatever city is the pimp's home base and basically takes them all through the South, through Florida, up through New York, and then up north and back around to their city of origin, which would be Oakland. And the reason they keep the girls moving is not to try to thwart law enforcement and keep the girls from getting too hot or too known in one location. The internet is very difficult. The pimps have found basically a loophole, a way to hide the girls from the police. So he may post a picture of one of the older girls on the internet offering the services. And you won't know that he has young girls for sale until you make the phone call and make a special request.
I think it affects the community in a number of ways. I think it affects the community first and foremost by normalizing the exploitation of women and girls. And so if there's a young girl that grows up in a community where she sees that happening, then she's more likely to be victimized by it when she becomes just a few years older herself.
When there's prostitution in your neighborhood, that usually is surrounded by a drug problem, tagging, violence, and that brings down the community. And at that point, it's like, when does it stop? When do we as a community take a stand and say, no, this is wrong?
Some of the marches that have been going on in the San Antonio district, 17th Avenue and International, the anti-prostitution marches, are an absolute example of the community coming together and showing their outrage. They take over that space that's normally controlled by the pimps. And even if it's just for those few hours, it interrupts business and it scares the pimps, and it sends a message that, the community is not going to tolerate this. And when the community and the police work together, it's a very powerful thing.
I have worked hard to put jail cells and abusive relationships behind me. I was searching for something. I don't know what. I was searching for love, but I didn't love myself. I was searching for belonging, and my soul was empty.
Now, I came to realize that those children are innocent, but abused and forced into prostitution.
We now can treat the young women involved in the industry as victims. We don't prosecute them. We give them an opportunity to go to a different program where they get counseling and are not arrested.
So when a sexually exploited youth is referred to Missy, we don't just work on their sex or extra exploitation, we work on everything. So we look at their whole life and think about what are the things that we can do for this child in their life that could make them less vulnerable to this form of abuse.
When you first come in contact with a lot of these girls, their hard exterior is really, really hardened. But once you peel back a couple of layers and you build the trust, they're all just children. I mean, and I fall in love with every single girl and, want to take her home as my own child.
By looking inside, I'm healing myself. By healing myself, I'm healing my family. By healing my family, I'm healing my community. By healing my community, I'm healing my world.